All right, guys, this is episode 4 of the Adventure RX podcast, brought to you by Pinpoint Physical Therapy. My name is Nick Anderson, your host, physical therapist, and today we have one of my favorite skiers, Andy Parry on Line Skis. Been watching Andy for many, many years. He's been on the Line Traveling Circus, on the Telefriend Tour. I've met you a couple times at Brandywine now, and really excited to have you on and to chat with you, Andy. How's it going, man?
Good, good. Thanks for having me. How are you doing?
Yeah, good, absolutely. I'm doing okay. I'm not skiing this winter. I'm dealing with a partially torn PCL, so I've been rehabbing. Probably not going to ski. Maybe in the spring, we're hoping, but we'll see. PT doing PT things.
Yeah.
So you just got back from Japan. You got the Telefriend tour kicking off in about a week. For those of us that don't really know about the Telefriend tour, tell us a little bit about it. What's the goal? What's the purpose? And why do you keep doing it? It's been a long time you've been running that tour.
Yeah, so Telefriend Tour is a free skiing activation tour, and what we do is we go around to mountains, small and big, and we basically just go and ski the park for like 4 or 5 hours, collect some media, hang out with kids, and then at the end of the day, we just do like a free pizza party and raffle. So for kids, if you have a season pass, it's free. If you're coming from somewhere else, you have to buy just a day ticket, but our whole goal is basically to we don't want to charge kids. It's like a weird, like I've run into this with a couple of ski resorts, one recently this year where it was basically questioning why I don't charge kids. So I charge to make this happen, I have to charge the resort basically like an event
Gotcha.
fee.
Okay.
So it's like, they're questioning like, why don't you just charge the kids and you don't have to charge us an event fee? And it's like the event fee is really not that much, like, under $1,000 sometimes. So
Sure.
it's like kind of like, well, I don't want to start charging kids, so that's kind of our whole thing is just try to keep events in skiing just a lower cost, get more kids out, people hang out with each other, and I think one of the reasons why I've been doing this so long is because there's really not any alternative. Like it's like a great working business model and everything, and I'm surprised that really no one has like kind of like gone out and try to just do it but bigger. There's
Right.
almost 500 ski resorts in America, and it's just kind of like, all over the world, people could be figuring out doing something like this. But yeah, I guess whatever.
Yeah, you guys got this started kind of back when social media wasn't as big. It was YouTube. It was every year you'd have what Step, you'd have a few other, level one, some of the bigger brands would be putting out a couple videos a year. Did you see this getting to the point where, back when you started it, like did you see where it is now, like the potential for the Telefriend tour?
Yeah, and that's kind of a weird thing. So yeah, when I started Telefriend Tour, this was like 13, 14 years ago. So Facebook was kind of like the top social media dog at the time, and then kind of YouTube supplemented like kind of like in a different way. So yeah, over the last, 13, 14 years, the landscape of social media has changed quite a bit, and I obviously for the worse for society, and almost I would say worse for the tour, quite honestly, because really we just have used social media to disseminate information about our event.
Sure.
And now it's kind of like morphed into a thing where the event is now based around social media. Like the physical event itself exists at each one of these resorts, but leading up to it, during it, and after it, it's like, oh, no one really cares too much about how many people are coming, it seems like. It's more of just like, well, if I have to justify like a sponsor or something, they want to see the social media numbers, like the
Gotcha.
in-person numbers and like kind of impact of the in-person event really doesn't seem to play too much into like decision-making roles for sponsors. Obviously, that comes with some exception. Sun and Ski Sports, shout out to them. They own a bunch of ski shops, and their marketing manager and a couple other people actually showed up last year. It was their first year sponsoring the tour.
Nice.
I think this is like the first time I've had like a marketing manager or media manager, anyone from any brand, like come actually physically to the stop and see the direct impact. And that's kind of like where,
Sure.
social media is kind of like, I think almost like plays down the importance of this in-person role.
Right.
It's just kind of, yeah. So it's kind of a bummer, but at the same time, it's like I hate social media, but you do have to play the game.
Yeah, it's definitely a game, and it is a bummer when you look at the tour like that, and it's all about getting the kids involved, getting the groms out there, shaking hands, hiking rails, teaching kids stuff. I've personally been, I think, to 3 or 4 stops with you guys, and I'm usually one of the older guys out there, so we can chat like adults. But it's fun to see all the kids out there just getting stoked, getting free pizza. You guys do some good giveaways, and yeah, the in-person aspect of the tour. I hope that could still remain, the main thing. I know it is for you guys. Yeah, it's an interesting perspective with the social media. Do you think with all the negatives of social media, is free skiing generally is for free skiing? Do you think all the Instagram bangers and all the increased content versus, when we were growing up with skiing, like I was saying before, a few releases a year, do you think it's been good or a bad thing for the sport?
Oh man, that's a hard thing. I think for the sport, for getting more media and kind of just not information necessarily, but just kind of like just getting the sport in front of more people, I think it is a good thing. Obviously, social media is the lowest barrier of entry you know, uh, for anyone. You can just download the app and you can see people skiing or skateboarding or cooking or whatever. So I think like bringing that to the table is great. But I think in general, social media is just kind of bad for everything, kind of like at its core. The long form videos you're talking about, again, like, I grew up in the early 2000s, so it's like you had Poor
Right,
Boys, you had Matchstick, Level One,
right,
you had
right,
all these premieres coming out every year, but the media was almost restrictive. It was just like, well, $20 for a DVD isn't that much, but 4 or 5 videos coming out a year, it's like you and your friends kind of got to like pick what
yeah,
you're doing, like, what
right,
videos you're going to get, what premieres you want to go to.
for sure.
It definitely, um, it's kind of like we were talking about the tour just a second ago. It's like the in-person community of the viewing of like, like going to a film premiere or something like that. That's, really only like, it's changed. It's changed. So it's like, what's really good now is like, I'd say we're in like a new, like, golden age of like free ski media or whatever. Like the amount of content that's coming out, the amount of good people, the amount of good crews, it's just like you now know, like you could see someone skiing and be like, holy shit, who is this person?
Right.
Whereas
Oh yeah.
like, 20 years ago, you knew who that person was because there's only like, 25, 35 like top dogs that you were going to see in these videos. So I think in that aspect, it's awesome. And there are movie events and movie premieres, like it's like there's a lot of smaller crews doing movies now that they do have like a couple events or premieres or even a series of them, which I think is awesome because it brings that community back into it. So double-edged sword, it's hard to say. Like social media is obviously rotting all of our brains,
Yeah.
including the younger generation, and there's going to
Right.
be there's going to be a reckoning for sure. But for right now, it's just kind of like this. It is what it is, and if you're not on social media, and you don't play the game. Like you're not going to have sponsors. People aren't going to see your content. In the end, you're
Sure.
just kind of like you're hamstringing yourself. So man, it's good and bad. It's a bummer and it's a blessing. So yeah, we'll just see how it affects our brains.
Yeah, in 20, 30 years. Yeah. Yeah, I get on Instagram every day and I see some kid I've never heard of doing some crazy stuff at, Park City or Copper or something. Um, that accessibility I think is a great thing, especially, in my field too, in PT. There's a lot of great free information out there. But then that comes with a lot of bad information as well. Um, I try to keep my inner circle and those that I follow online, people that I agree with professionally. But yeah, like you're saying, there's definitely certainly some downside to all the social media, and time will tell, I guess, what our brains are looking like in a few years. So that's an interesting thought there. Going off with, kind of playing the game. How have you made, the ski industry is tough and there's not a ton of money there, back when X Games were huge and everything, guys were making a ton of money off competing. How have you made your career last so long and be, pretty successful at it for so long? I mean, I've been watching you for, I don't know, 15 years or so.
Yeah. Well, number one, it's someone asked me like, oh, I want to be a pro skier. How do I be a pro skier? You get a job. You want to be a successful pro skier, you should get another job or a job that pays even more.
Okay.
So, yeah, I think, obviously supplementing my ski income with work, traveling circus has been good to me over the years. Line skis, obviously, I've stuck with them for like 18, 19 years now.
Sure.
But sponsors come and go. I understand for sure things move around, budgets get cut, and then Sun and Ski picked me up personally as a sponsor. So it's like doors open, windows type of thing. Like it's fickle. There can be years where, you know, you lose a couple sponsors. I'm probably one of the most, not the most, but I'm probably up there as one of the most dropped and then signed people in skiing. But that has to do with, it's like I've just been in the game for a really long time. And again, we're talking about contracts. We're not talking about like, tens of thousands of dollars. We're talking about like, it's like two, three, $5,000. It's like,
Sure.
I just had to spend $2,200 on my HVAC system, like because it got fucked up. So it's just kind of like, well, you know, that's why I still try to work a job, do some coaching during the summer. I'll try to do some painting, some like random contracting work. But um, I think that's like the key to longevity is you just can't, you got to have a job because all it takes is, if you have two or three sponsors, you lose one of those sponsors, that could be a third of your income gone. So it's
Sure.
like I've had uh, not a lot of skill, but a seemingly good amount of luck to end up where I am, as old as I am, doing what I'm doing.
Sure. Yeah, I love that. And I would say you're definitely skilled. The wizard tricks, man. Who's impacted that style? Is it something that you've developed? I mean, obviously over years, but were there any particular skiers growing up that you really emulated or looked up to as far as developing your own ski style?
Yeah, so like a couple different things with that. One is the like ski slides, or they call them nuggets, just kind of like one ski on the rail, one ski off the rail, usually guiding your foot that's on the rail. That was just something that was like a common trick in the early 2000s. So Dave Crichton, one of my favorite skiers, he did a lot of ski slide stuff, and it was just kind of like, okay, instead of just grinding right foot forward and left foot forward, you now have a different option of going, one ski on, one ski off. So that was kind of just like something that I've sustained through the years. It's like Will Wesson has been doing it for a really long time, obviously. Like Ahmet Dali in a lot of his level one segments had some pretty crazy ski slide tricks.
Sure.
And then the other part of that is just kind of like the wizard tricks, like the ones that are more uniquely mine. And then it was kind of like maybe during the 2004, myself and Charles Gagne were doing some like pretty weird things. Like I had just kind of started doing some things what we call the bind sole or the Beowulf, which is front ski on the rail. The other ski is like kind of like folded behind you and like a skater grind or something.
Hmm.
And I think it was kind of like almost at the same time that myself and Charles were doing that. And then for me, it just kind of evolved into different types of things like the hippie killer, the tip dip, the switchblade, the dick squeeze, the jackknife, the chinko, all these different things just because it was again during when I was kind of growing up and in college, 2004, 2008, boxes were, there it was like people were kind of transitioning from just pure rails to kind of like more boxes. And at the time it was just like it was a spin to win thing in every competition and a lot of video segments. It was you're gonna do a 270 on, spin around, switch up, switch up. Pretzels were, Vanula had done a pretzel, in like the early 2000s sometime, but it wasn't mainstream. It was like your
Sure.
continuing spin was it.
Right.
So I was just kind of like, well, where's this going to go in skiing if there's not some variation? So it's like, Will obviously had like a bunch of different tap variations happening that were snowboard inspired. Cole Drexler, Max Hill were doing kind of like off the rail things like butters and like dead lung, which is like kind of like a land shifty press push type thing. And then I was just like, well, maybe I can use my skis in a way that, snowboarders can't do this trick, skateboarders can't do this trick,
Sure.
rollerbladers can't do this trick because it's manipulating, my tip or tail of one ski on the box or on the rail to be able to like create pressure to either push myself and pretzel away or using just how like skis, the physics of skis in a different way to like full or not physics, but construction of skis or whatever to fold under each other in a way that you can't in any other sport.
Sure.
The inspiration is like a mix of like Dave Crichton, Charles Gagne, like just kind of like some early robot food or snowboard movies and like kind of rollerblading because when I was a kid I rollerbladed, I skateboarded, I tried a BMX bike, and then all of those were way too hard and I ended up with skiing.
Gotcha. Skiing was the easiest for you, most natural.
Yeah, I think it got to the progression of like hitting street rails on rollerblades and like doing bigger stair sets on skateboards. And I was just like, yo, this shit is super hard and scary. And I just
Yeah,
messed myself up a couple times, you know? It's like, well,
yeah,
I'm gonna
yeah,
stick
yeah.
with skiing
Snow is a little softer than concrete sometimes.
sometimes, yes.
Have you've been pretty healthy throughout your career? Have you had any, I know ACLs and skiers, go hand in hand. Have you had any big surgeries or anything like that?
Surgery wise, yeah, I had ACL probably in like I don't know, 2010, 2011 or something. That was actually not from skiing. It was from working. I was helping a
Nice.
guy. Yeah, I was helping a guy cut down a tree in my neighborhood when I was back home. And I was jumping over this fence because the other way I had to walk around. You know, it's like I was being lazy basically. And I jumped over this fence and just my knee just popped and just,
That was
no,
it.
that was it. That
Man,
was it.
did you
Yeah,
miss
so that's,
did you miss that season?
I did.
Yeah.
So if you look at, I don't know, it's season like three of Traveling Circus or something, I'm working at a Pizza Hut while recovering from my ACL in Salt Lake City. And during that winter, the boys had some pretty good, well, one really good trip to Europe with some really awesome powder skiing, and I was pretty bummed about that. But yeah, that was a bummer. And then the other one was an Achilles, and that wasn't a full rupture, it was a partial tear.
Okay.
Yeah, so and obviously I'm talking to a physical therapist right now,
Yeah.
but the I mean the obviously the full tear you need to get surgery, like obviously correct. And I've kind of learned after the fact that some people don't get surgery on a partial tear.
Yeah, so it depends on the extent of the damage and what you're trying to get back to doing in the ligament or the tendon. So partial tears, you generally do like conservative therapy. I would tell my patients do 6 months of hard rehab first. Why not? It's the cheapest thing you can do versus surgery. It's the least invasive. Work at it for 6 months. If you're not satisfied with where you're at, then go meet with a surgeon. You can always get the imaging and MRI option as well early on to really see, what the extent of the damage is. Like I know for me personally, right now I had about a 60 to 70% tear of the PCL, which is a lot thicker ligament than the ACL. So I did end up getting an MRI. I met with a surgeon. He's actually a guy that did some work with the USA ski team, so it was a really nice fit for me. When we just, we're shooting the shit for 20 minutes. I'm like, dude, I'm a sports PT. I don't want surgery. I want to ski this year, potentially, definitely going forward, as long as I can. What are your thoughts? And he's like, yeah, don't get surgery. Just rehab for 6 months and see where you're at. So it was cool to see the alignment of, the orthopedic surgeon and myself. I know sometimes, the analogy is carpenters see a nail, they want to hammer it. I think some of the older school surgeons want to do surgery right away. And even with some of these full tear ACL and PCL, you're seeing some non-surgical interventions going on where patients are trying to rehab without getting surgery. I wouldn't recommend that for skiers just because it's one of the hardest things you can do on your knee or the Achilles. That one, you got to get that fixed if it's fully torn. Did you ended up just rehabbing the Achilles or was it surgical?
So I was living up in government camp at the time, so I was, a good hour away from kind of just like, yeah, doing rehab and stuff like that. So I thought I heard it and was like, oh, this sucks. I'm just gonna like see if it gets better. And then it's like, a week or whatever, it's like really not getting better.
Sure.
Schedule like a orthopedic surgeon, and that took 3 weeks a month to get like kind of like scheduled. So during this whole time, I'm, walking around like in snowy government camp where they get like, dozens of feet of snow a year, and
Right.
just like living up in the second story thing and just walking upstairs, it was just like I kind of like started getting like a PTSD almost of like going outside and walking up these stairs because this is every step that I would take if I wasn't fully careful to have like my whole foot seated on the stair rung, or if I was walking in the snow trying to walk my dog or wherever, and I
Yeah.
put a little too much pressure on the front, it was just like I just like feel that like pain
Mm.
and rip, and it's just like Yeah, so I ended up going to a physical therapist because I was like, well, I can get this sooner than my orthopedic
Sure.
person. Go in and met with like an intern, and they're like, oh yep, like, well, we're gonna get you in, like, we're gonna try to get you in 3 times a week, and it's like, okay, and like then I'm looking at the cost, and it was like $150 plus going
Right.
in, so I'm like, holy shit, this is gonna be like $400 or $500 a week that my insurance is not gonna cover.
Sure.
So I was like, oh, okay, well, so I go there, I get sign up for another thing, and my orthopedic was maybe like a couple days later. So I go into my orthopedic, and a younger guy, he actually has line skis. He's a skier. He didn't know who I was because I don't know why the hell would you? He's an older orthopedic surgeon here. So I mean, not older, but like in his mid 40s.
Right.
So he put me on the table, and then he's like, lay stomach down and put both of your feet up in the air flat. And I'm like, all right, cool. And he's like, well, yeah, your Achilles is fucked. You're gonna need surgery. And I'm like, oh shit, you can tell that just by
Yeah.
that. And he's like, yeah, well, you can see how like one foot is like kind of like flat or whatever, and the other one is just kind of like slumped. It's because your Achilles is
Hanging.
like all
Yeah.
messed up. And I was like, shit, I was just told that I need physical therapy, which again, apparently is the case. But at the time, like I was like, well, this guy, this orthopedic surgeon, has like a path for me. And of course, I get an MRI a couple days later. He expedites the whole thing for me. And he's like, cool, well, we're gonna just schedule surgery in like, 5 or 6 days, and you're gonna go in, you're gonna have it fixed. He did I think he used this as a case study at a conference that he did in Denver, basically where they like took the two pieces of the torn Achilles,
Mm.
cut the middle in half, so it's like almost two prongs of like a fork,
Okay.
inserted the top in there, I believe, and then sewed the whole thing up with like titanium wire, maybe.
Oh,
Um,
interesting.
so, you know, all in all, it was like, okay, like it's non-weight. So if anyone ever has an Achilles surgery, it sucks. It is, ACL,
Uh,
you're, yeah, it's the next week you're starting to do rehab, getting range of motion. Achilles, 3 months,
it's rough. It's rough.
non-weight bearing, man,
Yeah.
non-weight bearing.
Yeah.
So I, go from like soft boot, hard boot, all these different boots. Eventually I get into PT, starting PT, like, past the 3 month point, and I'm still living like an hour and 15 minutes from like where I was doing PT. So I didn't get hit it as hard, and, insurance, and it's just like
Right.
I still don't have a lot of my calf, like I don't have any problems with it at
Yeah.
all, but I still don't have, the mass of my calf muscle back. Whereas
Sure.
when I did the ACL, it was a week out. You start physical therapy. I was living in Salt Lake City. My physical therapist was like, pretty damn close to me. And I was going to Planet Fitness pretty much every day because it was cheap as hell.
Right. Right.
And I
Right.
didn't have to drive. Yeah, I was 5 minutes away from my house. So I think that's one thing that kind of sucks is like, just being in more of a rural area, the lack of, healthcare, well, access to healthcare, doctors, physical therapy, gym,
Sure.
all that stuff is kind of stunts your recovery. Well, that and just, yeah, you shouldn't tear your Achilles. But
Okay.
I am finding out, yeah, more now that like there's many different approaches to the Achilles tearing and partial tears and stuff like that. But again, hammer and nails. Like, I went to an orthopedic surgeon that was pretty keen on cutting me open and trying this like kind of newish thing.
Yeah.
I mean, again, shout out to him. 6 months after skiing or after getting the surgery, I was back skiing. I, knock on wood, haven't had any ill effects from it.
Nice.
I, besides like the muscle mass in my calf, it's like pretty, pretty good.
Pretty good. Nice. Yeah. And I'll probably go the opposite way where I see most of my patients that asking about surgery. I rarely recommend going to a surgeon right away. I probably am like leaning the other way a little bit too far. Again, hammer and nail type of thing. But that's a good point about accessibility for healthcare. A lot of states now, we do have direct access for physical therapy where you don't need to see a surgeon or a physician to come in and either do a walk-in or schedule a PT appointment. I'll have patients call me, same day, and I can just have them walk in and I can see them. I think telehealth too is a valuable resource as well. That's something I've been hoping to get going a little bit more, just to reach people that, it's not accessible. Hour and 15-minute drive 3 times a week. Why couldn't it be a telehealth session, unless you need some of that hands-on work. I give you a program, and then hey, I'll talk to you in 3 weeks after you're a little bit stronger, a little more mobile. So there's different models for sure. The colleagues I surround myself with, and the patients I like to work with, I know they're going to be doing their programs. It's the skiers, it's the runners, it's the kayakers. Like they want to get back to doing what they want to do for fun, their hobbies and careers. So I don't see them that often. It's like once a week, once every couple weeks, you update their program every so often. And if they're not doing their homework, it's more on them than on me, because it's like you said, it's not cheap to come to PT, or any healthcare access. So I'm not in the business of. It's funny. I tell this to some of my closer patients. I'm like, I'm not in the business of begging you to want to help yourself. You reached out for a reason. I'll give you the tools, and I'll be the coach to show you, the path to get you started. And then the rest of it is teamwork. It's a two-way street there. So yeah, cool. I'm glad the Achilles is doing well. When was that surgery?
8 years ago now, probably.
Oh, excellent. Nice.
Yeah, yeah. And again, kind of like what you were, it's there's I learned this during my ACL, is there's just a wide range of doctors and physical therapists that are just, on different sides of the aisle when it comes to how hard you go. So my Achilles, I mean, sorry, my ACL, I had a doc or a physical therapist in Utah. The guy was great. He pushed me. He pushed me so hard that it's like I puked once. Like I was
Yeah.
like, yo, I'm gonna go puke. Like I'm out, dude. I'm come back and keep
I
on
love
working.
it. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
and he was an awesome, he killed it. And then I had another physical therapist for like a month when I was back home in Victor, New York. A guy right down the street, definitely more conservative. And I think that was kind of like in the beginning of my recovery for the AC. But you could tell that he was more conservative in how he did things. Like it wasn't like
Right.
pushing me too hard. It was just like I could tell it was different. Like the two were different. And then if you talk to like certain orthopedic surgeons, like I have like an issue with my heels right now, where I have just like crazy bone growth going on. And I was like,
Yeah.
just like go to one orthopedic or like a podiatrist and just like, yeah, we'll just get in there, we'll move your Achilles over, we'll open up the whole thing, we'll shave
Jeez.
down the back of your heel, put the Achilles back, sew you up, you'll be good in like 2 or 3 months. And it's just like, yo, what?
Wow.
And then it's someone
Yeah.
else just being like, hey, like, yeah, it's gonna suck. Just like try to like limit the amount of time you're doing this or you're doing that, or it's just kind of like two sides of the aisle of like, your Achilles or your heels acting up. Like I'm just gonna get a cortisone shot, and which I had once from the
Yeah.
same guy that did my Achilles. I walked in, he's like, "Yeah, your heel's messed up, dude, and I'm gonna give you a cortisone shot." Does the cortisone shot, and then go to a different person like later, and he's like, "Whoa, that guy gave you a cortisone shot like that close to your Achilles?" Like apparently
Huh.
cortisone shots can sometimes cause a spontaneous rupture of tendons and ligaments or something, depending on where they are and what strength and shit. And I was just like, "Oh damn, well, I wasn't told that, but the cortisone shot really helps. So you're not going to give one to me?" Like, no, we're not going to do that. And I was like, "Oh yeah, all right, fair enough." So
Yeah.
two sides of the aisle. That's why it's like maybe good to like people doing PT getting into it, like talking to different people. Like it's like you can give some candid answers to someone. Like, hey,
Oh yeah.
these are expectations. Where it's like you
Sure.
could go to someone else and they'll be like, yeah, we can get you out of there in a month. We'll just have you doing this and this and this and this. And
Right.
so it's like, again, doctors,
Yeah.
hammers and nails, like surgeons, like it's probably better to get like a spectrum of like people or find someone that's in the middle. Like if you're kind of in the middle,
For sure. For sure.
yeah,
It's an investment that you're making for yourself, right? It's financial, it's time, it's effort. And I'll tell, friends or people that are out of town, if, whatever, if they're a runner, if they're a skier, whatever it is, ask your therapist or ask your surgeon, have you worked with someone that is a high level skier that has this Achilles surgery? Is it something you're comfortable doing? Are you experienced with it? There's nothing wrong with, interviewing per se on the phone, your therapist or your doc or your surgeon, because you want to find someone that's a good fit. And if they're a clinician that's, worth worth, their while, they're going to be honest with you. I have people reach out to me that I refer to some of my colleagues or friends that I think they're better suited to, match up with them for, based on what they have going on. So it's a good point, finding someone that, because it's such a big investment, that's a good fit for you. Well, pro skier, you can't just sit back and do, bridges and sit on the bike. You got to puke once in a while, right? High effort.
Yeah. I had never been in such good shape after my ACL and doing
Oh
that
yeah. Yeah,
recovery. It was kind of crazy.
I'm sure.
But yeah, but that's a good point. It's like, again, you're investing a lot into this. So it's like finding someone that's going to fit and like kind of go with you like past just like the 6 months of recovery or something
Sure.
that can kind of give you more tips and just kind of like, someone that you can even just like reach out to every once in a while and be like, hey, I'm having this
Yeah.
issue. Can I
Yeah.
come in? I think it's yeah, I think it's very valid.
Yeah, having a teammate on your side that you can reach out to is huge. Like you said, the goal should be to be a better athlete after surgery, after major injury than you were when you got the injury, right? Why would you want to be the same? That's when you got hurt. Be better, after the rehab process. Be stronger, be more athletic, better plyometric, more explosive. That's always, that's what I'm preaching with my patients. We're working hard here. Let's get to be better than you were before. That should be the goal. So anyway, that's my spiel for with my recovering athletes. Being a pro skier, what's one of the biggest misconceptions people might have? It's obviously it's not all glory and gold medals for most pro skiers making money doing it. What are a few misconceptions you want to put out there?
That this is real life. Like there's real life things that happen to you. So relationships ends, people die. Like you have financial struggles, you have mental struggles. So it's like it doesn't matter if you have a loss in the family or a friend. It doesn't
Mhm.
matter whether you're on a trip in Japan or you're sitting in an office or whatever. It's gonna affect you. It's gonna fuck you up. It's gonna have all those the the repercussions and ramifications of like losing someone, or if you have relationship problems. I've seen many friends, including myself, get real messed up because of like relationship issues. Like, while we're on tour or we're filming somewhere, we could be in the most beautiful place, and it's like you're pretty down on yourself because this is happening in your life.
Right.
I think I don't necessarily struggle with this as much because I don't see myself as like a really top of the line skier. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm not going out and trying to get the gold. I think that's like a whole another like huge just mind fuck right there is just like the performance issues. Like I obviously want to ski well. I want to be doing the things I want to be doing, but the things I want to be doing are quite different than a lot of other people that are stepping up to things that have some pretty serious consequences.
Sure.
So I think that like if you're looking kind of from the outside, you're a kid, you're someone else that's either just interested in, free skiing, professional athlete, that whole side of it. It's like it's way different than you thought. It's you're just living your normal life, except now you have like you're just different jobs. But all those things they affect you. I couldn't even imagine being like a top performing professional. I mean, Nick Gepper is a great example. Like, dude
Right.
got silver or bronze in the Olympics the first time, and then, he had some pretty hard like things to deal with, some reckonings coming back to
Right.
kind of reality, and it's taken him a long time. And I'm calling him out specifically because I think his story is a good story. It's a
It
good
is.
tale.
I agree.
It would be like a good like fucking Hallmark movie or some shit
Yeah.
like.
It's just
And now the dude's on top of his fucking game.
right.
The guy is slated to be on the Olympic team for half pipe now, like switching into kind of mid course, like later in life. But again, like I don't think that any of his struggles should ever be like diminished or anything like that. I can only imagine like the top level musicians and performers and stuff like that, or actors. It's
Insane.
like yeah, they make a lot of money, so it's kind of like yeah, all right, like that's cool and everything, but they have a lot to deal with,
Sure.
with that. And I guess it's like, man, if you're even thinking about like double A or triple A, like baseball players or like hockey
Mhm.
players, I don't like whatever. It's just like, people going out and working that hard and they're given sport, their vocation, like working so hard, but not getting that financial reward or fame or success out of it.
Yeah.
doing it in hopes that they might get it. It's like, at least with skiing, like you have like a bit more freedom of things. Like it's, yeah, that and like money, like again, if you're a kid that wants to get in free skiing, want to be a professional skier, like I wanted to be when I was 16, like get a job, like learn how to be a plumber, like learn how to be an
Yeah.
electrician, like start your own business. Like that's the best way that you can kind of like make money in skiing is not skiing probably.
Yeah. Doing both.
But
Yeah. It's,
yeah.
I think the skill level is, with all the social media, you see what the skill level is now with these young kids. And, you could say, oh, the social media is easier to make money with skiing, but now there's, 20 times more skilled skiers out there that are doing the same thing, trying to do the same thing. Yeah, that's good insight. Thank you, Andy. If you had to give yourself, let's say, 18-year-old self, any advice, one piece of advice, maybe for some of the younger kids coming up, trying to make it in the ski industry, other than that financial side that you talked about, what would that one piece of advice be for maybe younger Andy or for some of these younger kids coming up?
I've been asked this quite a bit. Kids will ask me this on tour and stuff, and don't fuck up. That's the number one thing. Just don't fuck up. That can go with a lot of different things, like injuries and stuff. Like, be careful, be calculating. I'm 38, and I've had two injuries. Both, neither of them were like, one wasn't even skiing. The other one was just like kind of dicking around. Like, be like real, be vigilant. Like, assess the risks of what you're doing, and think about it. Like, hey, like hitting this urban rail, like I could really, really hurt myself. Like, is this worth it? It's like, well,
Right,
sometimes it's like not worth it, man. Like, or if you're a kid at a competition, it's like, man, I really want to get gold. I'm gonna try this trick or something, and it's like, 30 mile per hour winds and it's snowing and you don't have enough speed. Like, no, don't risk it. Like, there's so much that you still have to like, live for in skiing. Like, and there are
right.
certain injuries that will permanently disable you, like a knee injury, another knee injury, whatever. Like, you can get taken out pretty quickly. Like, a lot of professional skiers have a couple injuries in a row, and like that's it for them. Like,
That's
it's over
it.
with.
Yeah, yeah,
So you have to assess your risk, I think, is like one of the bigger things that I'd like to and it all falls into don't fuck up. Have a backup plan. Like, again, like get into a trade, get into a vocation. Like, I would say, go to college or whatever. But
hmm
honestly, like, shit, I went to college and I haven't been doing shit with my college degree for the last since 2007 or whatever it is. So, vocational trade school, shit, man, electrician, you want to get an electrician up in your house? It's gonna be $150 for the first hour and 125 after that,
Oh
plus
yeah,
$75 an hour if you want an apprentice in there too. So it's like,
right.
damn, you want to make some money, you know, trades, vocations, stuff like that. I probably would tell my younger self, like, yeah, you don't have to go to college. It's like a weird, like, I understand it. It's left over from like, the baby boomer generation being able to have enough disposable income to like help send their kids to college. But that was when like college was like, like $6,000 a year, $4,000 a year, something like that.
Yeah, crazy.
And so, again, folding this into the don't fuck up, like, again, like take care of yourself. You're
Yeah,
going to be getting into, like we talked about, kind of like being in the rural situation, like with healthcare. It gets even worse being in a ski town, drugs, alcohol. You got to keep your eye on the game, like that you want to ski. And quite honestly, it's like if you're skiing 16, 17, 18, younger or whatever, and
hmm
you can keep it for the rest of your life, you're gonna be, I would say, like, one, you're gonna travel way more. It doesn't matter if you do this professionally or not professionally. Having skiing in your life, there's an excuse to go somewhere and do something. Like, hey, yo,
exactly,
I'm gonna
man.
get some friends together. I'm a 30-year-old physical therapist. I have a little
Yeah,
disposable income. Like, let's all go on a ski trip together. Like,
yeah,
instead of being
yeah,
like, oh, we could go to the beach and hang out, which is sweet. Like, you could go surf. Like, you
yeah,
always have, if you're skiing, you always have skiing. You're bummed
yeah.
out.
It's
You're depressed. You want to get a little, like, you want to touch the grass. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
go out and do something physical. You have skiing. So it's like, I guess, I don't know. 18-year-old Andy looking at me now would think that I'm the coolest person in the world. Like, I got a hot wife. I'm a professional skier. I'm going on a tour. Like if I was just in Japan.
Yeah,
But again, it changes and it gets different.
sure.
So just know that, like if you're younger or whatever, or just interested in this side of the sport, like there's still problems. Like everyone's got problems.
Everyone's got their own stuff, man. I think that's a good point. It doesn't matter the sport too, it's 0.1% make it as a pro in any sport. It's such a small amount, making to the point where you can sustain some income. So, I've talked to some good coaches too in various sports and colleges, and I've seen some good talks about it where, these coaches and let's say, NCAA football, these guys aren't all going to the league. They're not. It's like 1% of the team going to the NFL, going to make money. So have that backup plan, like you're saying. I think that's really good balance. Still go for it. Absolutely. Chase your dream. Put every ounce of effort and smarts into it that you can. Work on the physical performance side, work out, get your cardio up, find a trainer, go to Planet Fitness. It doesn't have to be complicated. Planet Fitness, $10 a month, you get a free personal trainer, get on a plan, and go all in, but also have in the back of the mind, backup plan in case, injuries happen, family stuff happens. You just never know. You just never know. You guys will be at Boston Mills Brandy Wine on what's the date again, Andy? 21st of February.
Yep.
Cool.
We'll be doing a night stop from 3 to 7, and yeah, you know, pull up
Then you're
to any of the Telfront tour stops. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of spots in New York. You grew up skiing Bristol, is that correct?
Yep. Bristol in Western New York.
Nice.
Yep. So I
Yeah,
started skiing about 14 or something when I was there.
nice. I was born in Rochester, grew up in Jamestown, New York. We ended up skiing Holiday Valley quite often and Peak and Peak. Both of those places were pretty good to us. Kissing Bridge in Buffalo as well. Cool, man. Well, if I know you guys have a tight schedule, it looks like you're going to Holiday Valley the next day, 22nd. Shoot me an email when you're in town. I could get you guys in for some, treatment if you need to. I do cupping, dry needling, could do some massage work. I'm on the west side of Cleveland, so it's probably 25-30 minutes from Boston Mills if you could squeeze it in. I'd love to get you guys in and get you some little tune up before the tour gets too heavy.
Yeah, yeah. I'll let you know. We're on we get a pretty tight schedule. It's
Yeah,
kind
it
of just
looks
like,
it looks tight.
yeah, we just try to fit it all in, and we have more ski resorts that hit me up, and probably about like 6 or 7 this year that want me to come, and it's like, man, I'd love to
Yeah,
come again, but it's just like
yeah, yeah.
if I keep on extending this thing, then I'm not gonna like ever see my wife, like
Right.
she's not gonna be stoked. So
Yeah, well, I will. Maybe I'll see you on the 21st. Like I said, I'm not skiing this year, but there'll be a ton of Groms out. Boston Mills. There's a ton of skiers. It's so fun for us to see all these young kids out there.
sick.
So
Yeah.
it'll be a good stop. Be a good stop for you. Then Holiday Valley next day. Good old Holiday
Yep.
and Kissing
Yep.
Bridge. Cool.
Kissing Bridge. Yeah. It's good to show Western New York a little bit of love.
Absolutely.
It's New York has the most ski resorts out of any state,
I believe it. Yeah.
and probably one of the most slept on like areas in the I mean, in general, skiing population of New York, New Jersey area is like one of the biggest skiing populations in the world. Then you throw New York in, you add Syracuse, Utica, the access to a bunch of ski areas. I think, yeah, New York is pretty slept on as kind of just like a of the possibilities of park skiing, because you're not going to New York to ski powder. Like
No.
you're not gonna like you might
No.
get one powder day in a year or something. But I guess unless you're maybe up in like the where they get the snow belts and stuff, the lake
Right.
effect snow. But I think it's a prime area for just kind of resurgence of the park skiing scene. And it's cool to
Oh,
see
for sure.
Holiday Valley and Kissing Bridge are making some pretty dedicated moves to kind of like be part of that rise. Because again, like park skiing, this is going to sound crazy, but I believe is like the most accessible form of skiing that you can do from
Oh yeah.
just from a never ever level, pretty much, to a top professional skier. I mean, there's the APK Fest or something that's happening in Ontario. It's a rail jam and like kind of festival thing that's being put on now. And it's like you have Tucker there, you have Tom Wallish there, you have a bunch of other pro skiers that are going, and it's like kind of shows you that like even to compete at the top or like the highest level of the sport, you don't need that much square footage.
No, you
Like
don't.
it can happen on a rope tow. Like Kissing Bridge now has a rope tow. There's a rope tow park in New York, so it's like I would hope one day like ski resorts could realize that like we don't need like huge jumps in a park. We don't need like all this liability. Like we just need something that's fun, accessible to the mass population of alpine skiers, and then try to
Right.
convert them over.
Yeah. Oh
But
yeah.
that's just, that's just my thing. Again, it's like, skiing is expensive, but you know, it's the park skiing can be less expensive than you think, and compared to like free ride and big mountain skiing, which I think is the complete most inaccessible and almost laughable. It's with the half pipe skiing. It's like the
Right.
most inaccessible
It's
part of
yeah.
our niche inaccessible sport.
It's
Yet
unrelatable.
it's horribly unrelatable, and it's cool and everything, and that's why they draw in such like big sponsors, like like watch sponsors and like cell phone sponsors and big whatever sponsors, and it's just like, yeah, that's cool and everything, but like, how many people are really going to do this a year? Like,
Right.
because
Right.
especially,
Exactly.
unless you live out west, or it's like you're in Vermont or New Hampshire, you can go on a tour up like a ski resort or something, but it's like for the mo vast amount of people, like putting on some like trekkers and like hiking up like your hill that's close to you or 3 hours away from you, you're gonna get like 300, 400 vertical feet in. Like that's great and everything, but like, so that's my little thing about
No, I
park skiing
yeah,
accessibility and
I agree.
yeah,
I agree. Some of the most fun skiing I've had the last few years. I've been in Cleveland, I think for 7 or 8 years now. It's just hiking a rail at Brandywine, find a good tube or down rail or down bar or something. Just getting hot laps in or just hiking and, working on, the trick of the day or whatever it might be. We got a couple 100 feet, that's all we got. And, they keep the
that's all
rails
you got.
nice and, it's fun though, you got to make the best of it. And, we can't afford to travel out and, hit the big mountains, too often. We try to get out once or twice a winter, but nothing wrong with hiking a down tube for a couple hours with the boys and, getting some Gatorades and some hot dogs going afterwards. And yeah, absolutely, man.
Yeah, and not that I'm saying I'm like shitting on like free ride skiing or brands investment in it. It's just because I mean the most fun thing to do, honestly, for me is to go ski powder. Like
Yeah, for
you
sure.
can't
For sure.
you really can't beat 'em. But it's just interesting to see how the industry is after COVID, especially during COVID, it started weighing so heavily on like the uphill movement, and it's just kind of like, yeah, that's great, but
Yeah. More the
accessibility
touring.
wise, like, yeah,
Yeah.
what are you
Yeah.
gonna do?
There's a lot more mountains like Holiday Valley and Brandywine out there than, uh, Mammoth Mountain
Jackson
or
or
Jackson
Mammoth
Hole
or
or,
yeah, yeah,
the big
yeah.
crazy ones. Absolutely. Well, Andy, I thank you for the time. I appreciate it, man. It's fun to chat. Hopefully I can catch you on the 21st. I know it's going to be a tight stop for you guys, but good travel, safe travels. Hopefully you guys all stay healthy on tour and have a good season, man. I appreciate your time.
Cool. Yeah, thank you for having me on, and yeah, we'll talk soon.
Yep, thanks, Andy. Bye.
Later.